My dad's famous saying is if he's drinking beer, he's watching the party. If he's drinking bourbon, he is the party. So,
that's a famous
I always thought
quote.
that was pretty funny and true because beer, you get all bloated and just full, and bourbon definitely the party gets a little more exciting.
Oh yeah, I agree.
Bringing to you the best stories from icons in the bourbon industry, it's Bourbon Pursuit. Now here are your hosts, Ryan and Kenny.
Welcome to the first episode of the Bourbon Pursuit podcast. My name is Kenny, and I'm along today with my co-host Ryan. Ryan, how's it going today?
Doing well, man. We've made it. We've officially recorded about 10 episodes, and now we're recording our first episode for the third time, so hopefully we get it right.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to re-record it just because, well, we're learning as we go, right? We're figuring out the mic setup, the proper audio, but at the same time, we kind of recorded our first one, and we kind of just winged it, and now that we kind of have a good premise of the show, I think it's a good idea to kind of give everybody kind of a taste of what they're going to be in for.
Yeah, I mean, we made mess-ups from recording audio, go in there and thinking we're recording the audio for 40 minutes and not even having the record button. Or
it's happened.
We've had, just tons of mishaps, mostly human error, but we're figuring it out, and the content's good, so hopefully it makes up for our errors.
Yeah, our errors. That's definitely for sure. But to kind of give everybody an idea of the premise of what we're really trying to do here, it's going to be something different that none of the other podcasts are really doing, right? We want to kind of give you a kind of an inside look, or kind of, I guess you could say like an editorial look of what it's just like to kind of be these people that we're interviewing in a kind of day-to-day scenario, right? We're kind of figuring out, how did they get into the industry? What makes what they're doing so special? And it's not so much of just like, sit down, we're going to write a piece about you, but it's tell us your story.
Yeah, we figured that we're not that interesting, and people in the bourbon industry are, so we go out and interview them and kind of share the stories, because that's what bourbon's all about. Each brand has their stories, their history that connects you to the brand, so we kind of want to give you those firsthand, and I think you all enjoy it. We got some really cool guests. We've been all around the state this winter traveling. We've been to Buffalo Trace, Four Roses. We've been with the Angels Envies guys. We've got Heaven Hill. Just pretty much anyone and everyone who's the who's who of the bourbon industry, and we're adding as we go and figuring it out.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the good things is that you said the who's who, and I think that's exactly what we're trying to do is, we're not trying to find every master distiller, right? That isn't, we're gonna run out of content very soon if that's our goal, is just finding
there's
master
only
distillers.
Probably like 10, so that would be a very short-lived podcast.
Yeah, so the idea of what we're trying to do is to bring you interesting people that makes the entire bourbon industry happen. Whether they're a master distiller, whether they're tour guides, or whether they're just bloggers on the bourbon scene, right?
Yeah, there's so many people that make it happen. There's tasters, there's cooperages, there's the people that make the stills. There's just so many moving parts to this industry that to get to that bottle of bourbon at the liquor store, and it's interesting to hear everyone's take and story. So we hope you enjoy it as much as we have.
Yeah, so I mean, just some of the things that you guys to kind of know what's coming up. We've got. From Buffalo Trace, we've had Harlan Wheatley and Bo Beckman. We're going to hopefully get Freddie Johnson on the recording as well. We've got Al Young and Jim Rutledge from Four Roses. Ryan was actually good enough to actually get into Heaven Hill and had an interview with Mike Sani, who's one of the head tasters at Heaven Hill.
Yep, yeah, he assists Parker and now Denny Potter with their mass tastings and helping them pick out the mash bills and everything. So it's pretty cool to hear it from his point of view.
And we've also got from Angels Envy, we got pretty much a whole crew.
Yeah,
the whole crew from Angels Envy on two different ones. But then, as I said, we're getting other people from around the bourbon industry, right? So we've got people from Mint Julep Tours. We've had Blake from Bourboner.com on here. We're going to have some people that write editorials for Louisville.com that are kind of whiskey writers, Fred Minnick as well. So we're going to have a lot of good variety of people that are going to be on the show to kind of give you different angles from all these different places inside the bourbon industry.
Yeah, we got a lot planned and still working. If you're listening, and you probably, hopefully, you didn't just see all
skip
skip
episode
over
one.
episode one, which
Who are
I
these-
probably would.
Who are these douchebags?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we'd love any suggestions or for interviews and stuff because there's a lot of people in this industry that are cool, and it's not just in Kentucky. We're looking, because bourbon's kind of expanding outside Kentucky, these craft distilleries and stuff. So we'd kind of like to get their take on it too.
So I guess a good question for you is, we started the show for a reason. We wanted to start the show to kind of give other people an insider view into the bourbon industry. But I guess how did you really start getting into bourbon, Ryan?
Well, I am from Bardstown, and been around the industry my whole life. My dad's a machinist and kind of does some repair work for the local distilleries like Heaven Hill and Beam and Makers. So just kind of grew up with it. Really didn't know it was that cool. Just seemed like everybody worked there. And, here in the past, probably in the past 10 years, but really in the past 5 years, I've seen this explosion happen. And, I was like, so that's why I got with you. I was like, hey, I know a lot of people in the bourbon industry that are so-called rock stars. And I was like, why don't we interview them and kind of, share their stories. But anyways,
and when you say that, it's really funny because as we've been going through and we've been talking to people, when we go and interview these people, they're like, so what's the premise of the show? Or, how'd you get started with it? And we tell them. And then afterwards, Ryan kind of goes off on this whole like personal tangent of like, oh, yeah, I grew up in Bardstown, like, these people. And they're like, yeah, like they're married to like my best friend, or they're, like, yeah, it's like my brother-in-law. Like you end up finding like all these connections that you have with all these people from Bardstown.
Yeah, one of my good friends, his family's been in the industry. His grandfather actually built all the bourbon warehouses throughout the whole country. I mean, so just through him and through my dad, I've kind of met quite a bit of people throughout the industry, and it's pretty cool. I didn't know it was cool to know them, but now I'm glad I do. But but getting back to my first really experience with bourbon was probably like in high school. Well, I know it was in high school at a field party or something. My friend Pikey gave me some like Evan Williams Black Label or Heaven Hill Green Label, and it was mixed with Coke, and it was ecstasy. It was like this, not the pill, but it was good stuff.
That.
And I was like, oh my gosh! And then it turned into a disaster. Puking, hangovers, whatever. But just kind of made the same progression as most people do. You drink it with Coke, you get into college, you're mixing it still, and then you get out of college, you're like, hey, let's try on the rocks, and then you watch Mad Men and them and see them drinking neat or something, and then you try it that way, and once you make it to that neat level, you're really drinking in like high def, and you can kind of get all the characteristics of wood and everything, get the appreciations like how the master distiller wanted you to taste it. So that's kind of been my experience with bourbon, and it keeps growing.
I'm pretty sure that everybody,
going.
Yeah, I mean, everybody can kind of relate to that. There's definitely a way that you grow inside of appreciation of all the different flavors and different brands and the chars and all this other kind of stuff that you can go and eventually research to figure out, what do you like from what distillery, what labels and all that sort of stuff. But as you kind of mentioned, that's definitely the evolution of a bourbon drinker. You kind of start off mixing it because you know what you're doing, and then you kind of maybe move into some cocktails, and then you kind of put it on the rocks. You got to chill it because you can't basically shoot it straight. And then you do it neat, and then you start saying, all right, well, fuck it, time to do barrel proof neat, right? It's time to really step it up.
And the barrel proofs have ruined like every bourbon for me, because now it's like if it's not barrel proof, I think it tastes like water, and it's a shame, but you get to experience a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the difference of having barrel proof, because sometimes some barrel proofs, I mean, they can just be really hot and heavy, but being able to dilute it with a little bit of water at whatever you find is more palatable or suitable for you gives you that opportunity to do it.
Yeah. So enough about me. What about your story? I know you're a big. Well, you got probably one of the biggest bourbon collections I've ever seen, and
I don't know about big. It's not that big. I've seen pictures. I'm just a drop in the bucket to compare to some people.
Yeah.
But no. So I started getting into bourbon. I would say I could probably tell you the first time I tasted it. There was what should I say? It was so my dad, he used to keep a pretty good stock bar in our basement, and I would think I was in 8th grade at the time, and I had some buddies from the neighborhood, and we're like, all right, we're gonna go camping, and but we're gonna kind of do something a little bit different. So we go to my dad's basement, and we go and we take like idiots, here. We grab like a water bottle and we take a little bit out of every single bottle. Like it's bourbon, it's gin, it's whiskey, it's blue caraco, it's like I don't know, all this just stuff, right? And we're drinking it, but
and
that was like
refilling the bottle with like water. Or something.
Exactly. And so we actually did that. So after a while, we're like, oh, this isn't looking good. These bottles are getting a little low. So we go and refill it with water. And gosh, it probably wasn't until 2 or 3 years later till my dad realized it. And he goes, "You're such an idiot. Why didn't you just steal an entire bottle and I never even would have recognized or never would have known?" So he kind of gave us that. So really how I started getting back into bourbon, I guess for, really getting into it is probably back in college. I joined one of the, probably the biggest bourbon drinking fraternity on campus. And at the time it was for me, it was buying Natty Light, and it was, giving $10 to say, all right, go give me an 18-pack. But that quickly kind of turned around when we started throwing these parties that basically had bourbon and Coke everywhere. And that's kind of led up to the point where I was actually social chair for a little bit, me and my best friend at the time and they had this law in Lexington where called keg tagging, where you couldn't actually buy a keg without it wasn't tagged. And so if a party ever got broken up, they would go and they'd see who the tag was registered to, and then you go and you get cited or fined for giving underage drinking to like 200
tracing
kids.
Is no good.
Yeah, so we had to figure out a different way to do it. And really at that time, if you wanted beer, you had to just go buy tons and tons and tons of cans. Well, we figured we could probably make this a little bit more interesting. So what we did is we
can make these parties a little bit more sloppy.
Yeah, maybe that's the best way to put it. So what we did is we had these big Gatorade jugs, like those things you see on the sidelines of football games. And we thought, we could probably do, and actually we kind of stole it from an idea at a bar, as they used to do bourbon and Coke pitchers for like, I think it used to get them for $8 all you can drink, but they would give you a full pitcher of bourbon and Coke. So we said, we could probably do like bourbon and Coke mixed in these huge things.
Was this at Avio?
Yes, back in the day.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we figured out the best ratio. And back then it was Kentucky Tavern and like Diet Pepsi, right? That was just kind of what we did. And so we would go and it'd be one handle Kentucky Tavern to 2 2-liters, and we would just keep dumping them in these things until it's completely full, swish it around a little bit, and that's how we were able to kind of have bourbon and Coke at these big house parties. And didn't have to really worry about, cleaning up a bunch of cans or kegs or anything like that. And if we needed to get rid of it, it was easy to dump. Yeah. So, I mean, that was easily the thing that kind of got me into it. So after college is when I started kind of really drinking bourbon, by itself, not really mixing it. After college, Old Forester became a staple in my house. And every once in a while I'd splurge on like, 4 Roses small batch. And now I'm getting to the point where I'm getting a lot more high-end stuff. So, I've gotten to the point where if I find a bottle I like and I go buy like 2 or 3 of them, I keep 1 to open and I keep 2 to bunker, or learn to, get in all these places and know people to trade them off. And so I can, keep that collection growing and start getting things that, are harder to get, right? So
what are you up to now in terms of bottles?
Last count, I think I was a little bit over 75 of just unopened bottles right now.
Oh, wow.
But I think in the open, I'm about 20 to 25. Like, I guess I got a complex where, like, I don't like, because there's a lot of ones that I've never tasted before, but I have a complex where I don't want to just keep everything open, right? I want to have like 50 open bottles. So I will try them all at some point, but I like to like finish a bottle and then go grab another one and then open that one. So that's sort of the way that I work.
See, my problem is I have 50, or not 50, probably 20 open bottles but you got like a whole inventory system spreadsheet. You really like kind of nerded out your bourbon system inventory.
Well, when you start going hunting and you start like really figuring out like all these different things of what needs to like actually go into not make sure you're not spending a ton of money.
Yeah, because it's expensive.
Doing the spreadsheet is about the best thing you can do. So now I have an inventory of how much of each kind do I have? What did I spend on each kind? What's the average cost? And then, even if I need to trade it off with something, I figure out what's the secondary market value. So if I need to take one of my Pappy Van Winkles and trade it for something else, I need to know what the secondary market value is, so I can be able to align it to whatever it is.
What's your most prized possession?
It's kind of hard to say prize because I don't have the biggest collection of some other people out there. I've got a few Pappy 23s. I got a Jefferson's Presidential 21 year. Just got myself a William LaRue Weller. I got a 2008 Sazerac 18. So there's definitely that 2008 Saz 18 is something that's pre-tanked, right? So that's actually something that is kind of unique that you can't get anymore. So I'm kind of very happy that I'll be getting that one. But like I said, it's the collection just keeps growing. But I really couldn't do it if it wasn't for like the hunting groups that really kind of started.
I wanted to talk to you about that because you got me involved in this local hunting group, and I highly recommend this for people out there. But kind of talk about like what group you set up here, the Bourbon hunting group here in Louisville.
Yeah, so it kind of started off, I would say, about a year and a half ago. It was I had this idea, and I just kind of put it out on Facebook, and I said, there's so much bourbon out there, and my ability to go to 10 stores in a day or whatever to go and hunt for all these is it's impossible, right?
Because we have a real life. We have jobs.
We do have jobs, right? Until this can become a full-time job, right? But doubt that'll ever happen. Anyway, so I said, there's my footprint just isn't big enough. So what's a better way to do this? And I ended up putting it out on Facebook, and I said, if anybody has this idea or wants to kind of join me, let me know. And so within the first week, I had probably 4 or 5 responses, and that's how it all first started. Basically, the premise is we get on Facebook Messenger. So Facebook Messenger allows us to have anywhere, I think, up to 20 to 40 people up onto a single messaging thread. And what we do is we basically go to liquor stores, whichever ones are closest to you, and if you see anything good, say oh, this is the price, here's a picture, does anybody want one? And that was kind of the premise of it. But that sort of died pretty fast because, you've got to have a lot of trust because you're either spending, a couple $100s when you go to these places, and you can't. And if you're just with a group of some people, and I might know everybody, but you don't know everybody, and so you're dropping a couple $100, and I don't want people to be in a bind to say oh, well, I'm backing out now, right?
Right.
We didn't really want that to happen. And here in Louisville, bourbon's tough to come by. As much as people like to think, should I say, bourbon's not tough to come by. The very high end, sort of the rare ones, the ones that always hit the shelves, they're gone within 24 hours to a week, right?
Yeah, right. In episode, I think it's 3 or 4 with Mike Sonny. Before we go to, we're trying to find Elijah Craig barrel proof. Kenny got a hot tip that was coming, so we stalked down the semi truck from Southern Wine Spirits, follow it to the liquor barn on Fern Valley, wait for it to unload, and then they only had 3 bottles of this, and so we got 2 obviously.
Yeah,
it's insane what you have to do around here to get these rare releases.
It is, but what we found out is that when you go and you try to get these rare releases, is that the liquor stores only let you buy 1 bottle. Right, so as much as we thought it'd be a good idea to say oh, go buy me 2 bottles or buy 4 at a time, it's just not possible. So now it's actually turned to the point where it's grown over the past year and a half. I think we have a little bit over 20 people in it, and so everybody goes to a liquor store, and if they find something, they take a picture of it, or they let everybody know through the thread, and they say there's we'll just throw something out there. There's a 4 Roses small batch limited edition at Liquor Barn. They've got 4 more left. First people to get here, get them.
Right.
So that's basically you kind of get the flare in the air, and it's kind of the first people to get there get it. But I guess it's a tip or a hotline is really what it is for everybody.
When something's hitting the shelves because my freaking phone, the notifications go off. There's 10 messages in a row. Well, your 12's hitting the shelves, and you're holy cow, I'm busy, or I'm in another state. Crap, can somebody give me one? But like you said, it's hard because you can only get 1 per person, so you got to send the wife in to help your buddy out or whatever.
But it's worked out amazingly well just because everybody, we don't do it to, go out and basically rummage all the stores and keep it for ourselves and sell them for aftermarket prices. That's not what it's about,
Yeah,
right?
I drink them.
It's about giving opportunity to people that want to get them a chance to get them, right? Because we're definitely in all this together to try to get everybody as much bourbon as we can so we can all enjoy it, and not to sit there and make money off of it. That's definitely not what the purpose is, and I don't condone that whatsoever. It's an opportunity for everybody to get a chance to be able to get rare bourbons and be able to enjoy them and not have to be stuck, paying aftermarket prices for some of that stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. I highly recommend everyone to do that in your like local town or city. It definitely helps, you get to find some stuff without
it's pretty viral
searching every day.
It's
Yeah,
viral,
now I rely on it.
Like how it's spread. It's funny. I talked to some of the people through private message on there, and he was like, I'd never checked Facebook for like maybe once like every few days, and now I get messages like every other day or a couple times a day trying to tell me to go out and buy stuff, right? And especially in the fall, the fall is when you need it the most because there's so many releases that are happening, and it's good to have multiple ears on the street to kind of listen for you.
Yeah, and I got friends who aren't on Facebook who want to be in these groups, but they're like, I don't want to be a part of Facebook, but I want to get the notifications, and I'm like, well, too bad.
Well, the Facebook Messenger allows you to be able to kind of have almost like a text messaging group, but that text messaging group, it can get out of hand really fast because you're not going to have everybody's number. Not everybody's going to be on iMessage, so you can't.
Nobody's going to know who it is. Where at least with Facebook, it tells you the name and the picture and stuff, so you kind of know who you're dealing with.
Exactly. So it kind of removes that anonymity factor, if you will. But at the same time, the hunting groups have led to some pretty good friendships within there. After the fall rush or whatever, we all ended up meeting and doing a bourbon tasting at one of our friends' house. So we kind of were able to enjoy the fruits of our labor with everybody there.
Yeah, tastings I've been kind of experimenting myself with a small group of friends with tasting. It's pretty cool because you can get the really high end bourbons, throw in some cheaper ones, and kind of see how it works out. And it's funny, for the most part, the higher ends kind of win, but sometimes the cheap ones end up at the top and the higher ends are at the bottom. Like we had
it's hard to call something cheap, right?
Well, cheap, yeah.
It's hard. I wouldn't say cheap.
Well, I'd say cheap, like $15 to $20 a bottle.
There we go.
Versus
there we go.
$90 to $100. But we had, for instance, an Evan Williams 1783 and the Lost Prophet in there, and the Evan Williams 1783 came in second out of 8 bourbons, and the Lost Prophet came in last.
Really?
Out of them, and so it's just interesting because that's like around a $90 versus a $15 bottle. So
and taste is always going to be subjective, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's what we found, which was really unique in our tasting. I think we had close to 40 or 50 different bottles during this tasting, right? There were so many because we kind of told everybody to bring 2 if they could, so we have a little bit more variety. Come to find out, we all probably could have brought really rare and high-end bottles because you only take maybe at most 2 to 3 maybe shots. So maybe 4 or 5 ounces what actually gets taken out of the bottle because if you're trying to drink or trying to taste 20 different bourbons,
yeah, you're gonna get shit faced.
Well, the amount that you're gonna take is very, very little, right? And so you can spread that amongst a lot of people, so you can actually share a lot of those good bourbons. But one of the cool things that happened at the tasting was, we threw in some random ones, right? So we had a group of 5, and we threw in one kind of everyday bourbon that you can get on the shelves, and we threw in Larceny for one of them. And Larceny surprisingly came up pretty high on a lot of people's lists.
Yeah, Larceny's I would think that would, because it's like a weeded bourbon. It's really sweet and kind of easy on the palate. So I'm not surprised that if you have it in there with some barrel proof, some people might think it's too hot or something. Larceny's real easy and smooth going.
Mm-hmm. And that's what there's always, you have kind of idea, do you want to put all rye in a tasting? You want to do all barrel proofs in a tasting? We didn't really do that. We just said, we're just going to mix them up and kind of whatever you think is good is going to be good. But it's definitely hard to drink a barrel proof and then go to something that's 90 proof. And then you're like, well, this is
water.
Well, you're like, this is night and day. It's too easy to tell the difference. So, but then there's also it's called the blind tasting, right? So that's a completely other one that you want to do is, everybody could bring a bottle, but nobody really knows what bottles are ever in it.
Right.
Right. That's definitely one, especially if maybe you don't have a hunting group, maybe you have a a very caring and loving wife that wants to just do something for you on a Friday or Saturday night. But you basically go sit in the living room or the family room, and then she goes in there and don't even tell her what bottles to do. You say, honey, you just go choose any 4 or 5 bottles you want, and then I'm going to choose which ones I like, and then I'm going to try to pair them with which ones I think they are.
Right.
And see how long it takes you to get it right.
It's even tough. Like, we did it with knowing what we had, and we tried to blind or just taste them and guess what they were, and it was impossible. Like, the answers were all over the place. It was pretty funny.
Right. It's definitely impossible. I should say it's not impossible. I did it with 4 at one time, and I think it took me 4 tries to get them all right.
Right.
Because we kind of did it, how they do it on the prices, right? And you say, like, Drew, do I have 2 numbers right? And like, so, you got, you at least one, but you don't know which one it is. So you got to kind of pick and choose. So it makes it much more difficult on you.
Right. Well, we're getting about close to that time. What we're doing here, we're going to release 5 episodes, kind of Netflix style, to give you.
I would say we call this small batch style.
Yeah, small batch. Yeah, he's the creative genius. But can you kind of give you 5 episodes to give you a little head start, or just a group to listen to, kind of get a feel for it, and then we're going to release weekly episodes. But in those first 5, we got Harlan Wheatley from Buffalo Trace. We got Al Young, 4 Roses, Blake from Bourboner, and Mike from Heaven Hill. So I think you guys will really enjoy them. Some of the audio quality, like the one at Buffalo Trace, they put us in Elmer T. Lee's.
We're still learning.
We're still learning. They put us in Elmer T. Lee cabin by the
master distiller cabin or
fire,
something.
And the fire is like basically you can hear it the whole time, and it's hard to. It's like, you can still hear us pretty good, but there's a little humming in the back. And I've tried to edit, but I still don't know what the hell I'm doing. So.
It's a fireside chat is really what that one was at Buffalo Trace.
Yeah, it was nice and cozy, but it was nice when we were there, but you might find it annoying. But anyways, I think you all enjoy them. The content's really good, and we're going to keep, trying to release an episode each week. So just kind of give us feedback. If we suck, let us know. If it's good, let us know. If you think something else would be cool, let us know. We just want to learn and grow as we go.
Yep. So if you do like what you're hearing, please subscribe to us on iTunes, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Bourbon Pursuit.
Thanks, guys. Enjoy.